It's just more money to be made for you, me, and your family if we partnered up. Build your kingdom. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking legacy. Uncle T? So what you say? Start some new shit or what?
They say this is a big rich town.
Now, today we're going to be talking about the aftermath of Power Book 4 Force Season 3, because it may be the end of Force, the end of Chicago, but as we've all gathered with the loose threads that they've left open in episode 10, along with Tariq's return in the ending scene right at the end, they're just getting started, and they will also be going back to New York. For those who kept up with my breakdowns in the build up to episode 10, I mentioned you can't have power and not have the theme Big Rich Town. Ironically, it's exactly what we heard right at the end, but it is a city I still have a lot of questions over, because how do they make it work with Tommy? Gary Lennon says he's not done writing Tommy's character, he still feels there's so much more story to tell. Although Power Legacy is still yet to be given the green light, they did announce that the writer's room was open for Power Legacy, which was way back in June 2025. Since then, there's been no official announcement. I'm sure now that they've got episode 10 out the way, now that Force Season 3 is officially done, the announcements should come pretty much any day. They've also teased the Power movies, and there are also some updates around that as well. Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora mentioned in an interview with Deadline, the Power movie is something that would be planned for after Legacy. But that's the topic of discussion in today's breakdown, what happens next, the lingering questions that's been left after Season 3, as well as some more interview quotes from Gary Lennon and Joseph Sikora. After this breakdown, we'll of course dig into the storyline breakdowns individually, because there are a lot of loose threads that still need to be answered for in the future of Power. Now, on the ending, Gary Lennon did mention that he wanted to leave a lot of questions open at the end of the season. In the build up to episode 10, you guys remember me mentioning, Gary Lennon did tease, come the end of episode 10, we are going to be questioning where the hell do they go from here. So this is what he had to say during an interview with TV Line, post episode 10, and I will link the article down below in the description section. Joseph and I were alerted to the fact that this was going to be the last season, somewhere in the middle. I think episode 4. So then we really had to hit the pause button and think about where we wanted to end the season, what questions that we wanted to answer for the audience, what is the story that came to an end. And so we did a lot of riffing and talking about that, and I think we landed in the right place. We landed in a place where we delivered upon that promise for an audience, answered a lot of the questions that were at play, and then the last shot, I feel like that came late. It was such a great place to end it. The question that Tariq throws out at Tommy, and Tommy's response, and that great smile smirk that Joseph did, provides an opportunity for our audience to lean in and go, what does that mean? I love ending a series or a season with a lot of questions, and that's a big question the audience will be asking. Now, I do think the way Gary Lennon works, if you're not familiar, he does love teasing the audience and leaving seasons and episodes with cliffhangers at big questions. The fact that at the end of season 2, he left Claudia Flynn in a position where we were asking whether she survived or didn't. What happened to Maria? What happened with the situation around Tommy with his family, with Kate, JP and D-Mac? He's a showrunner who always seems to leave us with a lot of questions right at the end. And of course, Tariq is definitely the big question. But that's not the only one. They've left us with a lot of loose threads open, with Jannard being a major loose thread and a threat that is still in the wind and alive in the world of Power. We went through 3 possible outcomes in the lead up to episode 10, which were of course death, he turns into a junkie, which almost happened to be fair in episode 10. We saw him on the rooftop, almost going back to the needle before he decided against it. But there was death, turning into a junkie, or surviving and being in the wind to maybe cause Tommy a problem at some point in the future. This is a character who will never forget who killed his brother Diamond, even though he's the reason why Diamond is dead. I said it back in episode 9, Tommy had a lot of respect for Diamond, and you could definitely tell during their meeting in episode 9. Again in episode 10, when Crew spoke out of line about Diamond, he corrected him. But this is still a man who he blames for not only taking Diamond away, but the man who came to Chicago and basically conquered. So the fact that Jannard is alive, you best believe he will be back for revenge, and the same also goes for Vic Flynn.
Let's take Tommy fucking Egan down. Together.
In my opinion, both Vic and Jannard go hand in hand because their common enemy is Tommy. Even though Vic had freedom in the palm of his hands, he was out in the woods where nobody would have ever found him. If Tommy ever got word where Vic was, maybe he would have come to finish the job. But realistically, who was going to find Vic here? The problem is he just couldn't leave this alone. Especially when he saw the news report of Diamond and then his sister. And remember, it does seem like a very long time ago, but Tommy was the one who killed Claudia. So both of these characters will be teaming up to try and hunt Tommy down. Whether that's a question and an arc that continues into Power Legacy, I do think it eventually has to. all of these loose threads that we're going to go through, they will have to be answered one way or another, either in the next Power show or in the Power movie.
I didn't want you to have to make this decision, so I made it for you. Oh. I took myself off the map. I'm safe. I'll be with family.
Now, with Maria, she decided to take herself off the map so both Miguel and Tommy could concentrate and not having to worry about protecting her, which I personally think was a smart thing to do. Just imagine if she was still in Chicago, Jannard and Vic would go straight for Tommy's biggest weakness, and that would be Maria, because Tommy wouldn't think twice about killing Ray. He made that threat a couple of times, so it was good thinking on Maria's part, but this is 100% a loose thread I do expect to come back around at some point. By the time the next Power show comes around, which they haven't even confirmed, they haven't even begun filming, so you can assume we probably won't be seeing it until at least 2027. They can easily have a 9-month time jump, and in that gap, Tommy's baby could very well be born, which I think he or she will be at some point in the future, whether that be in Power Legacy or in the rumored Tommy Power movie. I do expect Maria to come back with Tommy's child. There's no way that doesn't happen. Now, where Maria actually is at this moment in time, Gary Lennon did do an interview with Nigeria on Big Gold Belt Media and with the Coalition. I will leave the interviews down below in the description section and also in the comment section. He mentioned he's not going to say whether she's in Mexico or New York. He's going to let us fans speculate. So with that being said, my speculation is in the letter she said she's with family, and as far as we know, she doesn't actually have family in New York unless she is with Kate. But she would definitely have a lot of family in Mexico, so I personally believe she won't be in New York come the start of Legacy. She will be in Mexico, but no doubt she does have to come back around in Power because she is carrying Tommy's child. So that is loose thread number 3 to add to Jannard and Vic the Snitch.
That wire was a nice touch, but I'm gonna need that recording.
Don't worry, I'll get you the tape.
Now, one loose thread that I mentioned in my breakdown for episode 10 was the wire that AUSA Seng was wearing during the murder of Bobby DeFranco. Tommy asked for the recording at the time and Seng mentioned he would give it to him later. But it just made me think about the flash drive and the recording that lingered around in the world of Power for what seemed to be an eternity. We know Gary Lennon is a Power historian, and I would not be surprised one bit if he kind of put this in there for the future. But I'm kind of sure that Seng would get rid of it because it does also implicate him as well. But the fact that Tommy doesn't have it physically in his hands, the fact that we didn't see it being destroyed, maybe it is something that could be kept on the back burner for the future. So that definitely is something to potentially maybe keep in mind, potentially maybe another loose thread, because who knows with AUSA Seng. Now the next one, I am going to group all of them in one, and they are characters that remained alive come the end of Force, besides the other characters that we've just been through. You've got characters like Genesis, Shanti Showstopper, Miguel Garcia, D-Mac, Bones and Smurf, and also Grayskull. All of these types of characters could very well pop back up in the future. We know Genesis is off to Spellman, so probably not Genesis. But with Tommy now the King of Chicago, he will be operating 2 cities, so you never know when he could go back and forth between the 2 cities. And the same also goes with these characters, especially D-Mac, Miguel and Shanti. Shanti was a character who we had a lot of reservations on, and I think they were valid because you just never know in this game. There are no friends in the streets. It's very difficult to know what Shanti's true intentions were. But towards the end, we did actually hear Tommy make reference to how she reminds him of Liliana, which I personally wouldn't go that far, but if Tommy's saying it, who am I to argue? With Miguel Garcia, these are 2 characters who have turned from enemies into family, brothers. I'm sure if Tommy does need help in the future, he will be there. I'm sure when we see another Power family dinner scene at some point in the future with Tommy, Maria and their baby, again, Miguel Garcia will have to be there. Same with characters like Kate. You always need this back and forth between Tommy and Kate, and with her being back in New York, she is a character who will no doubt pop up in Power Legacy or in the Power movie, you can guarantee that. With D-Mac, I'm not actually 100% too sure whether we will see him crossing over to New York. I think once they start to announce the Legacy cast, we will get a better idea of where they're taking the show in its first season. At this moment in time, it's still up in the air because it 100% hasn't been confirmed. I'm sure we will definitely see D-Mac again, but not sure whether he'd actually prominently figure as a main character in Legacy. It did sound as if it was just Tommy and Tariq who were going to go and do their thing.
A few weeks ago, someone robbed from one of my dice games. I had to let security go.
Now, one loose thread that I thought that may come back around to is the storyline around the Chinese, the brick that D-Mac stole way back in episode 2, the whole storyline around Madame Wu and also Bolo, possibly even Chen being connected to them. That's something I wish they came back around to, but I guess with them having limited episodes to wrap things up, them only finding out around episode 4 it was going to be their last season, Who knows if they actually had season 4, maybe that's something they would have come back around to eventually, because Gary Lennon did say he is big on answering all the questions. So I did think it was worth a mention. If they ain't dead, they can pop back up. Same thing when it comes to a character like Grayskull. I do think he brought a lot of energy to the screen. I do wish he's a character who we saw more of, because you could definitely tell he grew into his role. The fact that he had this history with Jannard and CBI dating back to season 2, and with him also moving over to the RDs, that's one thing I wish they kind of focused more on. These other crews such as the RDs, just like they did in Power with the Taínos, the Soldado Nation, the RSKs, and how we knew all of these side characters that eventually grew to having more of an influence in Power. It's just unfortunate that they were told around the episode 4 mark that this was going to be their last season, because if they did have another season or 2, he's a character that I'm definitely sure would have grown into the show, maybe with other characters like Bones and Big Smurf. So let's see what happens with characters like Grayskull, Bones, and Big Smurf. Any characters that are left alive, I do count as a loose thread, who can definitely pop back up in the world of Power. Now, coming over to Tommy and Tariq. This is the biggest loose thread in question that they've left open, and I do think the question everybody wants the answers to. It's a topic that I'm definitely going to be diving deeper on its own this coming week, because I've still got a lot to say on Tariq's return, because I do think they've left us with a lot of questions during this scene on the rooftop. For example, what happened back in New York? How does Tommy actually operate in New York when he's supposed to be dead in that city? What will the story be for Power Legacy? Will we see any returning characters, either from the World of Power, Force, or even Power Book 2 Ghost? Gianni has gone on record to say he's done with Power, and just a reminder, I did say it's conveniently timed that the Crew Has It podcast is returning on the 20th, so keep your eyes peeled for that returning episode. But I do think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered in terms of what they do next, where they take the story in terms of Tommy and Tariq, especially if they are going back to New York. A lot has definitely changed since Tommy left, and by the sounds of it, a lot has changed since the end of Ghost Season 4. It doesn't seem like Tariq is actually in control over his machine. These two characters also have a lot of history, and you could tell Tommy still feels a little pissed that Tariq did kill Ghost, and I still think they have a lot to talk about, as well as Tariq learning a thing or two from Tommy. There was a big debate back at the end of Ghost Season 4 whether Tariq had earned the name of Ghost. I still say he hasn't, and in my eyes, he never will. But I did actually mention in that breakdown at the end of Ghost Season 4, the only person who is worthy of giving him the name is Tommy. You only have to go back to OG Power, because there have been a lot of moments between the two where Tommy basically told Tariq throughout the years he's just like Ghost.
Loyal only to your own cause. Sound exactly like Ghost.
You just as low down and grimy as your old man. You see this bullshit right here? This shit exactly like him. Just like Ghost.
And I'm sure along with these, there definitely will be plenty more. With that being said, those are the burning questions remaining at the end of Force Season 3. Jannard and Vic are still alive, looking for revenge on Tommy. Marea's gone back to Mexico, in my personal opinion, not New York, which also possibly even opens the door for Tommy to maybe even go to Mexico. I'm sure the next time we see Marea, she'll also have Tommy Jr. in his arms, or maybe they have a girl. There's also the tape that AUSA Seng said that he'll give to Tommy, and all the characters in and around the drug game in Chicago, from Che, Shanti, D-Mac, Miguel, Grayskull, Bones, and Big Smurf, they could always show up in the future. The Chinese, I do also think they'd make for a very dangerous threat in the future, definitely can't count them out as well. But with that being said, drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section on all the loose threads that they've left open, especially when it comes to Jannard, Vic, Marea, and D-Mac. Those are 4 characters in particular I do expect to see in the future, 100%. But drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.